This week's Game of the Week is sponsored by Baylor Scott and White Health.
All right, Curtis, big win by number 13 Holland, 20-3. What's your take from tonight's game from both teams? I mean, both teams are incredible, but especially from Holland's side.
Guys, I think this game says a lot more about Holland than it does about Mart. Keep in mind, since 1999, I'm looking at the signs right now. So since the turn of the century, Mart has won 4 of their 7 state championships, and not a one of them has been with an undefeated record. So there's one reason why I think this says a lot more about Holland than it does about Mart, is because with Mart, it's just the next game. For Holland, you needed something to inspire that confidence, that belief in the team, because they believed in themselves. We saw in the crowd tonight that the buzz in this town is real. You needed something to cement it, to put your stamp on the Texas high school football map, and a win against the 2-time defending state champion is a heck of a way to do that, to build that confidence. And let's face it, Nick, it's an inevitable thing in sports. When you beat a 2-time defending champ, people take notice. Schools in Holland's district include Marlin, Rosebud Lot, and Milano. And so, you know, if I'm one, you have to think that somebody, even if it's just one person, is looking at the Holland Mart score tonight and going, yikes, we have to play those guys. But kind of, I want to touch on Shoemaker for a second, if you don't mind, because guys, we talked about this last year, Nick, if you'll remember. Everybody in that 6A district here in the area was saying that you can't sleep on Shoemaker. That first year or two of the losing streak, that 23 games or something like that, you could kind of go, okay, we can practice a couple things against Shoemaker to get ready for Temple, to get ready for Belton, to get ready for Killeen, to get ready for Midway. Yeah, that doesn't fly anymore, and that started last year. We had a few coaches tell us off camera and off the record, like, you know, if you look past Shoemaker now, you get beat. There were teams that game planned and worked as hard as they possibly could for that Shoemaker game last year, and to lose to have to win on the last play of the game, or win because Shoemaker's attempt throwing to the end zone on the last play of the game came up a little bit short. So don't sleep on Shoemaker either. They are very much in contention for that 4th playoff spot coming out of 12-6A. But let's be real, 12-6A is such a freaking toss-up right now. It's like, where's the coin and what side's it going to come up on who's in and who's out?
Hey, listen, 3 state champions lost tonight. La Vega,
yep.
Mart, Cuero. That's 7 state champions in the last 2 weeks. That tells you the parity right now in high school football, where the state champion doesn't always come out swinging and dominate.
Because they don't always have all their players back either. It's
exactly.
Like,
Some of them are injury, brand new teams, losing seniors.
You guys also have to
incredible.
know you guys have to look at some of the schedules these defending state champions are playing, too. North Shore Katie's a top 5 game last week. Katie beats North Shore, the defending state champion. And honestly, you can't tell me that some of the Katie staff isn't down there going, yeah, we beat them once, but that Zach Evans kid's going to be back in that playoff game. And their other best player is going to be back in that playoff game. Then you look at Aledo. Denton Geyer, who they lost to last week, is a top 10 team in 6A, and Aledo's 5A Division II. By the way, they're in University's district, and they open district play next week. So that's not really a bad loss for Aledo, because it's like, hey, we lost to a school that's going to go in the 6A Division I, or I believe Division I bracket. You go out west, you go to Mason. They lost to Wall, which is a powerhouse program, Nick, that's always in the quarterfinals, running into a machine we like to call Brock in 3A Division I. And so that's not a bad loss if you're a Mason fan, to the school that's probably going to win Region 1 in 3A Division I. Strawn lost their first game of the year last year. They're the defending 1A Division II champion, and they lost their first game again this year. They're probably still going to repeat in the 6-man ranks. You know, Cuero, I'm trying to remember who they were playing tonight. For some reason, I want to say it was Yoakum. And that's a Yoakum team, if I'm correct, that is a Yoakum team that was in a state championship game, like, 2-3 years ago? So, and then Mart scheduling, like, these two teams wanted to play each other. They looked at this as a great measuring stick, as a great building block to see what they've really got. What do they need to build on? Because, yeah, Mart lost tonight. They're going to be in the playoffs, and they're going to be making a run. They probably will be at AT&T Stadium still. Holland is going to make a run. And Nick, we talked about this, and I said it in our sports department group chat. Third round when they played Mason at the Palace on Palmer down in Round Rock, dibs.
Yeah.
I mean, all these top-ranked teams are scheduling games against top-ranked teams because they want to get themselves ready for district play.
Right. And that's why Clifton is scheduling Crawford. That's why La Vega is scheduling Argyle. If I'm Don Hyde, if I'm anybody in the La Vega program right now, I'm sitting there looking, okay, sure, we lost the regular season matchup. You know what happened last year? Argyle beat La Vega week 2, and then La Vega just took it to them in the playoffs. Like, I mean, when you have these matchups, it's like, okay, first of 2 meetings, let's face it, you kind of have to look at it as you have to take the result in the first meeting with a grain of salt. Is that a game that Don Hyde wants to win? There's not a coach in Central Texas that doesn't want to go 10-0 every season or 16-0 every season. But if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, you know, a loss to Argyle now isn't the worst thing in the world. Now you've got tape to show, hey, here are our weaknesses. Now, if look at this from the La Vega perspective. So this is week 2, and they've got 4 district games. So if my math is correct, they've got 4 non-district games remaining with a bye right before district play starts, and then they open with Stephenville at the new stadium at Tarleton. So next week they go to Austin Travis, or not Austin Travis. They host Austin LBJ. Last year it was one of those things where La Vega let one loss beat them twice, and they lost to LBJ on the road. But it was kind of just one of those games. Then you close out. You close out non-district play at La Vega with a road trip out way east, out I-30 to Texarkana Liberty Ilo, who, by the way, played in the second round of the playoffs last year and lost to a really good Lorena team. La Vega's got plenty of time to get everything going. Yeah, you'd like to win against Argyle tonight. It's kind of a budding rivalry in the Texas high school football world right now. But, I mean, I don't really think you can take much away from a 14-point regular season loss, and there go the lights.
They're kicking you out.
They're saying,
this hasn't happened.
Time to go.
This hasn't happened in 3 years, guys. But, yeah, I mean, if I'm La Vega, if I'm anybody wearing blue and gold up in Belmead, I'm not hitting the panic button right now. We've still got plenty of time in the season to make adjustments and move on from here. Nick, what I want to ask is there a team, and Nikki, I want to get your thoughts on this too, if you have thoughts on this. Is there a team that you've got some questions about right now?
Now you're going to put me on the spot. I'd have to think about it. Well, Midway.
That's what I do best.
They have, it's a new team. I think they lost again tonight, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember.
Losing.
We have so many. They were losing.
I don't think we had the final, but I think they were losing.
Midway. But I mean, again, they did that last year.
You have to remember though.
They went 0-2 last year, and then all of a sudden got on a hot streak, and then rolled into it.
Well, they didn't go 0-2 because that game against
suspended.
Lake Ridge never finished because of the weather delay.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, a lot of coaches in the 6A world were talking like if you listen to some of the interviews on some podcasts with Amarillo Tascosa's coach late in the playoffs last year when they came across Mansfield Lake Ridge, they're like, this is a Lake Ridge team that's either I think it was like 12-0 or 13-0. It depends on how you count that Midway game because Lake Ridge did own momentum in that game. What did Midway do? Rattle off 8 in a row to end the season, make it to the dang state quarterfinals. So I don't know how. Jeff Hume is one of the best coaches in Region 2, and I'm not saying that to blow smoke. He made it very clear last year with a brand new team, losing a Power 5 quarterback, and he makes it right back to not only to the state quarterfinals with a brand new team, but Nick, to the state quarterfinals in a bigger division than where he made it to the state championship game the year before that. So, some questions about Midway. Might I interest you in a Harker Heights answer? Because I have, and it's not a knock against Jerry Edwards. Stony Point is a decent team.
Yeah.
They play, Harker Heights loses to Round Rock last week, and I think that game said more about Round Rock than it did Harker Heights. But I mean, Stony Point's a decent team. Is Stony Point really going to be a problem out of District 13 this year, or
No.
are we looking at Killeen and Harker Heights kind of the kind of in a different way, because remember, Harker Heights' coaching staff was super, super bullish on this team, equating them, Nick, to the 2016 team that won the Killeen City Crown and made it to the playoffs.
Yeah, and Waco High this year, it looks like they are just taking a downfall. But I think
they're really
of
young.
course, Midway, Temple, Belton, and then maybe an Ellison, maybe like I said, maybe a Killeen, and maybe a Heights. I don't, just depends. It depends on what we see.
I think it's funny you bring up. Ellison, because I think they're the team we know the least about in Central Texas. I mean, think about it. 2 top 10 teams or 2 top 15 teams in their non-district schedule. They go to A&M Consolidated, and I think that game told us a lot more about Consol's offense than it did Ellison's defense, because keep in mind, Consol won the state 7-on-7 tournament in Division I, so you don't do that with a bad offense. Then you look at the Vandegrift game from last night. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on that, but I mean, that's a famous Black Rain defense. You hold them to, and I mean, if you're Ellison, you're 2 big plays on defense from sending that game to overtime. Think about, I mean, Nick, they set up the first touchdown that Vandegrift scored was a 57-yard touchdown pass in the first quarter. Then in the third quarter, Vandegrift scored the only other touchdown of the game on an 11-yard run that was set up by a 25-yard quarterback keeper. So your 2 big plays in that game from sending it to overtime or winning that game against Vandegrift. So like I said, I think Ellison's the team we know the least about, and I'm not trying to knock anything because Waco High is really, really young, but I don't know how much we're going to learn about Ellison next week either.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct there. Well, I mean, big week next week.
Yes.
Curtis Quillen, Nostradamus, he said the first thing out of the chute this past week, I think Holland and March should be our game of the week.
And
he was absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Hit the nail on the head. And, hey, we might have to get your choice coming up next week.
I just want to say,
excellent job,
you guys
buddy.
are trying to give me too much credit. I didn't actually say that Holland would win this. We just looked at the Dave Campbell's computer projections that had Mart as the favorite, and I said, and you guys can back me up on this, do not be surprised if we're talking to Talbert after the game instead of Coach Hoffman.
Yeah,
Because
that was in our
Holland's
squad text message.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to him earlier in the week, and he was like, really thought that they could win the game. So, I mean, I don't have preconceived thoughts about these teams. So I was jumping on your bandwagon with this one.
All right, my man. Well, hey, good luck. Hey, listen, don't let them lock you out. You and Ryan fight.
You need to jump the
Please
fence,
jump
maybe.
the fence. Get home safely. We'll see you tomorrow at Baylor game. And
I haven't had to do this since 2016 when they did this to Jessica and I in week 11 at I don't even remember where we were. I think it was McGregor. So this is going to be interesting.
They want you out of there.
Just flip on the light on your iPhone
Flashlight
there.
app.
All right, buddy. Good seeing you, my man. Be careful on the way home.